Okay, let's finish this worksheet. It's about section 5.4, and it's about factoring out the GCF. But with that comes this, someone discovered that this is kind of a cute way of doing things. So in Math 130, sometimes we talk about a common binomial, which acts as a common factor. The process, as you can see in my notes, is exactly the same. We must, and I really must emphasize, we got to train our eyes through practice. Okay, you got to practice enough problems. You got to be able to see the common factors in each term and learn how to factor them out. It's a process, okay? But this is unique because in this case, in this example here, you have a common factor that is not like an x or a 5 or a 12. The common factor is actually a binomial, okay? And it's as if someone took this binomial and distributed it like so to get, okay, x minus 2 times 3x, and then plus x minus 2 times minus 4. Well, that's what I have here. I've got, right here, I've got 3x times and then minus 4 times, okay? So we're not lying to you. Basically, you do the same thing in this example, and that is this common factor, let's box them, okay, is brought out in front, okay, and left behind will be these terms. Kind of strange looking, right? Well, let's watch it in action with this example, okay? So, obviously, in this example right here, we've got a common factor of 2x minus 3. It's in both. It's actually a really quick exercise. You simply go, I'm going to take out the 2x minus 3, put it right here. Notice the parentheses, important to put those there. Parentheses required. Well, it's a language, isn't it? If you don't use the parentheses, you get misinterpreted. You use the wrong word in France, they might run you out of town. I don't know, so you got to be careful. So 2x minus 3 is pulled out, and when you, think of it this way, when you divide by that 2x minus 3, when you divide by 2x minus 3, remember we did that in the previous slide or video, the 2x minus 3's just disappear, and you're left with the 6x, you're left with what's left over, which is 6x plus 4. And there, in fact, it's two binomials multiplied together is what that is. And really, when you first explain FOIL to people, you do it this way. You write, okay, the first term multiplies with the second binomial, and plus the second term, same thing. So this is like the intermediate stage right here of the FOIL method. And I know we completely forgot that, and we don't need to remember that. We just need to know how to do this. The reason we're learning this is because there's a process of factoring trinomials coming up in the next section. And a lot of you learned the X method, and it requires what they call factor by grouping, and that's what this is leading to. It's a lot of moves. Okay, let's do another one. You try this one, and I'll give you a moment to do it. You can pause. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to notice that 3m plus 10 is the common factor. I need the parentheses, and left behind, in fact, I should have boxed it. Left behind is 4m minus 7. It's actually a pretty easy exercise, isn't it? That's good. Okay, now we go down here to factoring by grouping. And I've got two examples, I have some notes for you, and one last example. So we got 3 examples of factoring by grouping, okay? Factoring by grouping, if you go down to the notes, basically the process is here, right? Factor out the GCF from the first 2 terms, factor out the GCF from the second 2 terms, and what happens is the terms left behind must match for the thing to work. See, it's best just to look at an example. It's good to know the notes are there. So it's telling us to look at the first 2 terms and factor out the GCF. Now, hopefully you've studied the first part of this homework and you go, yeah, the GCF, the GCF. Weber said, the book says, math says, take out the smallest power. That's all I can see to do is take out a k squared. Okay, so let's look at it that way. And so if we get rid of k squared from both by dividing, you get k minus 5. And there's no other GCF left over, is there? So you did it right. All right, go to the next term, do the same thing. But this is important, it's kind of important, mathematically correct, is to write a plus. Then you look after these guys, you go, okay, what's the GCF of 3 and 15 for this group? Answer is 3. You can pull out a 3. And if you pull out a 3 from those two guys, so you're doing it, in fact, it might be better if I slowed down and just said, look, we're going to deal with the first two terms here, and then we're going to deal with the second two terms. What we're doing is we're dividing out the GCF from each. They're different GCFs. This one's 3. So left behind here is k minus 5. Do you notice you got the same binomial? You did it right if you get the same binomial. And the problems we give you should work out. So that's good news. Are we done? Some students stop here and go, that's enough work. We're not done. Because what we have to do is go back up. Remember this? We're going to take out the common factor. So that's the last step. The common factor is k minus 5. And left behind, if you take him away, see that? Is k squared plus 3. And that's it. That's factor by grouping. Remember, this is leading towards trinomials in the next section. If you don't like this, I'm sorry. You might get one of these on the test, okay? Probably one. It's not hugely important, but it's 5 points on a test or something. Can you factor by grouping? So it might be worth your while for that A to, I'm going to study this too. Because you might not be a factor by grouping kind of person. I am not. I mean, if I have to do it, I'll do it. I know how to do it. Here's another example. Now watch this one closely because you're going to see something a little bit different. Okay, I'm going to box the first group. I'm going to box the second group like that. I'm going to look for a GCF in each in the first group. So we're going to go, what is the GCF? All right. Can you see it in the first group? Let's see. What can we take out of both? It looks like, a 2 and an r cubed. Do you see that? 2r cubed. Okay. There's a note here on this second example. Watch what happens. So our GCF is 2r cubed. And in fact, let me change I'll leave it alone. Left behind, when you divide, is r. You see that in the first term? Minus, and what happens here? If I divide it, you can tell me the answer. But if you pull it out, people get confused. They go, well, if I took the whole thing out, all I have is 0. No, you have a 1 there. That's the first note right here. If your GCF is actually one of your terms, then when you remove it, you have to leave behind a 1. Because look, when I do the distributive property, I need the 1 there to get back where I started from. Everything is equivalent. What I'm writing down is equivalent to what I started with. That's a lesson, in case you forgot it. Here's another good lesson. Oh, goodness gracious. If you just go plus and then decide, I'm going to factor out of these guys, looks like I can take out a 9r. Okay, so we'll say, let's take out 9r. Look what's left behind. You're left behind, see the minus sign right here? Okay, so that means you have a minus r and then a plus 1. But these guys are not matching. They have the wrong sign. So sometimes what you have to do is don't take out a positive, take out a negative. Oh my gosh, Weber, you're making me crazy. Well, it happens. If you take out a negative, all it does is change the signs so that they're right. They're correct. So here you have, you can't see it, so I'll try to erase a little bit. Okay. Here you have, see the negative over the negative right there? They cancel. You're left with r minus 1. Now they match. Great. Now you can do the last move. Take out the r minus 1. Left behind is 2r cubed minus 9r. Oh, I noticed something very strange. I didn't notice this in my notes. 2r cubed minus 9r. Okay, any of you guys following this? Do you see there might be more work to be done here? I didn't notice this when I came up with this example. Look inside the second binomial. There's a third note. Okay, look, might, how do you spell might? Might be more GCFs. Or you can say, look for the GCF of the front end. Okay, you got a common R there. Look at the original problem up here. R, 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 R. You could have taken it, well, I could have taken out an R at the front end. Look at Weber forgot. Am I done? I'm not done because I got to factor completely. So I'm going to take out that R. I'll put it here maybe. I'm going to factor out R. And I'm left with 2R squared minus 9. You good with that? And then, of course, that R can be missed between the two big parentheses. So I'll put them out in front. R minus 1. R minus 1. 2R squared minus 9. I did not see that coming. That is completely done. So watch that video a couple of times maybe. And what are you talking about? Anyway, that's how that one's done. Factor completely. Yeah, that word is operative right there. So the process is here. This note can help you with some of the devilish problems. Yes, you can factor out a GCF and leave behind a 1. Yes, sometimes you have to factor out a negative. And yes, there might be a common factor at the front end that you can take out as well. Well, we figured it out. We saw it. I have an eye that's developed through the years of looking at this binomial right there and going, not done. It's not completely factored. Okay, so we have one more and then we'll end this tape. And here it is. Why don't you give it a try? This is not a hard one. Pause it. Look at the notes. And away we go. So we are going to do the same thing. We are going to block off this group. And we're going to block off the second group. Okay. In the first group, I look at it closely and I see that all I can do is take out an X. Okay, so when we do that, divide out an X, I'm left with X plus 4. Excellent. Did you get that? Okay, good. On the second one, do you notice, here's the thing to anticipate. They're both negative. I should take out a negative so that I can match the binomial. So that's an eye that develops with a little bit of time. I'll just say if this guy right there is negative, pull out a negative. If the third term or the first term in the second group is negative, take out the negative. What can we take out? Looks like you can take out a 5 from each. So really we're taking out a negative 5 from each. Little note to myself. So taking out a negative 5. But if we do that, we're left with negative is positive X. Negative over negative is positive 4. You see how they match? We did it right. And so therefore, we pull out the X plus 4, and left behind is X minus 5. And this is done. We did it. Okay, so that's the end of this particular guy. And we will stop its recording, and we'll move on.